Good evening, I'm Charlene Wise. The mayor of Tower Hamlets was accused in a special court case today of rigging his election. 4 voters want the results of last year's campaign declared void. They claim Lutfi Rahman fought a campaign of intimidation, corruption and fraud to win power. 100 witnesses support their accusations. Here's our political correspondent, Simon Harris.
The mayor of Tower Hamlets is unquestionably controversial. Some people loathe him, but is Lutfi Rahman a crook, the winner of an election riddled with fraud and intimidation? That's what a handful of Tower Hamlets voters are telling an election court. They're convinced last May's ballot was rigged.
It was on an industrial scale, we believe. There was corruption in all parts of the borough, and it was completely unacceptable. We're talking about hundreds and thousands of fraudulent votes.
Rahman, who has his own party, Tower Hamlets First, was re-elected for a second term. His opponents in this case, known as petitioners, plan to call 100 witnesses. Francis Hoare, the lawyer for the petitioners, said some had been threatened with violence or their families in Bangladesh had been threatened. They know about Lutfi Rahman, he said. They know how almost 1 year ago he subverted democracy to win the election. Mr. Hoare said one witness reported seeing a young man in tears outside a polling station after being told it was un-Islamic not to vote for Rahman. Francis Hoare said of Rahman, he managed to bribe, intimidate and to defraud his way into being re-elected. Mr. Rahman's campaigners were corrupt. Mr. Rahman's campaigners committed fraud. Mr. Rahman knew very well what was going on. But Rahman's barrister Duncan Penny QC said the case against him was a rich and elaborate mixture of unfounded, exaggerated and in some cases downright deliberately false allegations. And any allegation that he endorsed, approved or condoned electoral fraud is simply not true. Lutfi Rahman wasn't in court, but his deputy was.
The bottom line is Mayor Rahman has won fair and free election not once but twice, and this is an utter disgrace and disrespect to the people of Tower Hamlets and disrespect to the democracy of Tower Hamlets.
John Biggs was the defeated Labour candidate. He claims he was labelled a racist by Rahman's supporters.
Politics can be a very passionate business and there's no problem with that, but people need to act respectfully, and a lot of us came away from that feeling that that had not happened.
Are you calling for the election to be rerun?
I think that's for the court to decide. From a personal point of view, I'm very happy to put the whole thing behind me and get on with the rest of my life.
The hearing was also due to challenge the role of the election returning officer John Williams. At the last minute today, the 4 petitioners agreed to drop that part of the case. But as the judge remarked, it was somewhat of a sideshow to the main war.
Simon Harris reporting there. 2 people were taken to hospital this morning after a double-decker bus in Holborn had its roof ripped off. Passengers and a motorist were hurt, but no one suffered serious injuries. London Fire Brigade described it as a freak accident. Ronke Phillips has this report.
Hanging behind by a thread, the roof of the double-decker bus which was wrenched off in the freak accident. The collision left the scene at Kingsway near Aldwych in central London littered with shards of glass. Llewellyn Hill travelled down to London from Wales this morning and was on the top deck of the bus.
Probably 500 yards from the Aldwych, and all of a sudden there was just the most almighty bang, and I instinctively just ducked down into my luggage, and within a couple of seconds I looked back up and all of a sudden I was looked like I was on a London sightseeing bus. The roof had just disappeared. I mean, we'd been showered in glass and all sorts of other junk.
5 people were injured in the collision. 1 man was left with a broken nose and another needed treatment for a head injury. It's believed the bus hit a tree and the roof somehow became embedded in the bark, but the vehicle kept on moving.
But I actually took a photo before I got off the bus, and so down the length of the bus all you can see is the blue handrails popping up from the seats, and which would have been attached to the roof at some point, but no longer were. And but the carnage lying on the street and the whole roof leaning up the bus like a ramp, sort of skateboarder's paradise, I thought. But yeah, it was pretty scary.
It took several men and all their strength to drag and carry the roof of the double-decker bus away from the scene of the accident, which miraculously was not more serious. Ronke Phillips, ITV News.
3 men have been jailed and one sent to a young offenders institute after a brutal attack on an American who had arrived in the UK just 3 days earlier. A CCTV camera filmed the 22-year-old victim being surrounded by the gang in Whitechapel in June 2013. He was then attacked with a bottle, leaving him with permanent scars. Another member of the gang was given a suspended sentence. Greenwich could soon become the home to London's first cruise liner passenger terminal for more than 30 years. Developers want to submit new plans to Greenwich Council in the next few weeks, and if they're approved, it should open in 2017. It would be the first terminal in the capital since the Royal Docks closed in 1981. And London's population has hit a record high. There are now over 8.6 million people living in the capital, passing the previous peak in 1939. It means the population has increased by more than 2 million in the past quarter of a century. London Underground has started to close down ticket offices. South Wimbledon and Queensway stations were the first to see their ticket offices shut in a move that has caused past strikes over job losses. More than 250 offices are to close down, with staff being moved into stations and onto platforms. Nearly 900 jobs will be made redundant. Transport for London claimed that only 3% of passengers were using ticket offices.
Most of the outer London stations will only have one member of staff for quite a long period of the day, and other stations in the system, we think there won't be enough staff to deal with people who need special help, to deal with people who need help on the ticket machines.
There are other stations that already operate without a ticket office, so Tottenham Court Road, Cannon Street, Embankment, just to name but a few. This is all part of modernising the tube and making it a better place for Londoners.
Operators of London's air ambulance service say money is desperately needed to buy a second helicopter. Medics say the time difference between reaching a patient by air or road can be the difference between life and death. But at the moment, London has just one helicopter ambulance to serve its growing population. And when it's grounded for repairs, there's no air cover at all. A new campaign, Your London, Your Helicopter, has been set up to raise the £4.4 million needed to buy another aircraft. While the campaign to save Soho has been getting increasingly vocal, it's safe to say no one was expecting Boris Johnson to burst into song as he met campaigners today. A petition to protect the area from losing its unique artistic character has been signed by thousands of people, including a string of celebrities. Well, today the mayor got his message across with the help of a local musician, as David Wood explains.
No, don't go to changing Soho. Because we won't know what's hit us when...
The musical mayor's Soho sing-along makes him the latest big name to come out and support central London's party district. With the Raymond Review Bar now an exclusive nightclub and the Madame Jojo Cabaret recently forced to close, campaigners are worried that the area is becoming too gentrified and more homes could be built instead of bars.
And this is why it should be a special policy area.
It's a campaign the mayor says he's totally persuaded by.
What went wrong was, in order to try to get more housing in London, the government changed the law so that local councils could no longer stop offices being converted into residential properties. That's okay in some parts of London. It's very bad news in places like Soho.
Save Soho!
And the mayor isn't the only big name to join the campaign.
Save Soho.
Save Soho.
Countless celebs have added their voice too. And among the most outspoken is actor and comedian Stephen Fry, who met with landlords last month, urging them to save Soho.
I think it's really important that the laws be clarified so that, performing artists and, for example, production houses and cutting rooms for editing, things like that are, as it were, privileged over other things.
Landlords and Westminster Council say they don't want Soho to lose its traditional spirit and character, while the mayor's calling on the government to give councils back the power to stop businesses being converted into homes.
Give back to Soho,
So he may not have quite got the song right, but he's got the message. David Wood, ITV News.
Let's take a look at the weather now. Here's Martin.
No, I do not want to be a snowman's nose. Thank you very much. The cheek of it.
Hello again. Cold and frosty out there tonight with 1 or 2 wintry showers dotted around. The highest chance I think will settle up towards the north of the London region. Tomorrow morning then, once the showers have cleared away, it's an overcast, chilly and slightly icy start. Things are though brightening up by the afternoon, so similar to this afternoon, some sunny spells, but feeling pretty chilly still if you are in that cold breeze which is sweeping down from the north. Another risk of some snow around on Wednesday, but then drier and brighter Thursday and Friday, but staying cold. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
New Covent Garden Soup sponsors the ITV London weekday weather.
Well, that's it from us, but don't forget, you can look up what's been happening in the capital on our website, itv.com/London. We're back tomorrow morning with updates during Good Morning Britain, so we'll see you then. Good night.